Hey folks, welcome back to the channel and my video on 1.0 teasers at PAX West. It all kind of started Friday afternoon on the 29th. We started to get some feedback from folks at PAX West who got to play BSG's teaser of the 1.0 content. As OnePeg put it, he was fangirling all over it, and OnePeg is no BSG sycophant. Everybody who knows him knows that. So that and some of the other stuff I was hearing was enough to see if I could get in on this. I DM'd Dimitri and Daniel and I double checked to see if they had a room for me to give so that I could give it a try myself. And when they said yes, I hopped a quick flight over to Seattle to experience it with my own two hands. Now at PAX, BSG once again had a pretty awesome booth setup. They had one group of PCs for playing Arena and another group for people to play Tarkov. They had a Bragman merch shop that was full of actually some pretty cool merch. And they had a closed off section, which had about 24 PCs for select individuals to play a preview of the upcoming 1.0 content. Now, I asked multiple times if there was anything I couldn't say or if there was anything they didn't want me to say, and they gave me the all clear. The only restriction we had is we couldn't take photos or videos inside the closed off area where they were doing the sneak peek. We did get some images from inside, but they've all been released by BSG employees. They had it set up to where there were 1 hour time slots for folks. They could sign up and could play. But it wasn't just a sit down and get started kind of deal. They had a little presentation as well as a short video we watched that I believe is the intro cinematics to Tarkov that we're going to get once we open it up for the first time after 1.0. Excitingly enough, that little video, that cinematic, does answer several long-standing questions we've had with the lore, as well as leaving us with some questions that I'm sure will be answered in the storyline playthrough. Now, regardless of what I'm allowed to say, I still don't want to ruin things for folks who don't want to have any spoilers. So I'm going to break this video into two sections of sorts. First, I'll go over the high level stuff, explain what I experienced, what I think it means, and why, with limiting any real spoilers that could be in there. Then after that, I'll get into the nitty gritty details. I'll give you exactly what happened, what we played. That way you can choose if you want to listen to it or not, and you don't have to have spoilers if you're one of those folks. Now, I also compiled a bunch of the questions I've been asked over the last 2 days, and I'll go through those as well in an effort to hopefully answer any of your questions. But don't hesitate to ask questions down in the comments. I'll do my best to get them all answered if I can to the best of my ability. I don't have all the answers, but I can straight up tell you we don't know or yes or whatever it may be. Now, the summary of what we played, simply put, it was part of the final raid series episode. We were placed right into the story and had to fight our way through scavs and Black Division in an effort to get our gear back and get to the next gate. 3 of us loaded into the map as a squad. We're given various in-game cutscenes that went along with the raid series, though still different enough to be new. The gameplay was still Tarkov. Nothing major changed other than instead of a sandbox raid, it was a narrative driven. And it had some boundaries and bumpers, if you will, that guided you in a general direction. And I hate using this because it's, for lack of a better description, it was kind of like playing an old school Battlefield or COD campaign where you're on a map, you have many paths and routes you can go, lots of choices to make, but you couldn't just wander off and do whatever you wanted without, failing the mission essentially. Very, very stalkerish in the more restrictive areas of the Stalker and Stalker 2 missions and storyline, if you will. And I believe, this is my general belief from playing this, that this is what the storyline experience of Tarkov is going to be. We'll play the raid series that they've created, but with much more detail. Now, if you're not familiar, the raid series is essentially a movie that was created by BSG years ago. It tells the story of a bear and a USEC PMC who are trying to escape Tarkov. It's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it yet, and even if you have, I'd suggest going back and refreshing yourself because I have a feeling it's going to be important for the 1.0 launch. So yeah, my guess is the storyline quest will loosely follow the path of the raid series, but with much more detail at the front and back as well as filling out the middle. The raid we played was intense, immersive, and simply put, an awesome experience. There was enough chaos to make you feel like you were in the middle of a crazy fight that was way bigger than just you. It wasn't just the AI fighting you. The different AI factions fought each other and you were plumb in the middle of it. Now, the little bit we played had a little bit of everything Tarkov in it. Looting, shooting, healing, unlocking high value areas, bosses, and every kind of AI from basic scavs to, let's just say, advanced units we haven't seen yet. But that was pretty much it. Like, I don't want to oversell it or act like I played something completely out of this world. It wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't a different game in the sense of mechanics or visuals. And as honestly, some of the more cynical people might put it, it was Tarkov with cutscenes. However, that description is woefully too simplistic to really describe the scenario that we went through. It did play different. It wasn't a raid where you load in, you have to go get your pocket watch or one of the many tasks we've all done a dozen times, and you fight some other PMCs and maybe some AI, and if you're lucky, you get out alive and you get loot, and then you rinse and repeat. This was more deliberate. It felt like you were achieving something and you were progressing in a story. And that's just an experience we've never had in Tarkov. So that's the general idea. That's the overview of it. So let's get into the specifics. So spoiler warning, I guess, because I'm going to tell you exactly what happened and give you as much detail as I can to what we saw and experienced. And I'll start with the presentation. We sat down, and once everyone was settled, Dimitri gave a short presentation explaining what we were going to be playing and how it's the accumulation of years of work for BSG. It was geared mostly for folks who weren't real Tarkov veterans, you know, the press and industry folks who were allowed in the room, but it did have some good details, and there was some good stuff in there for us. I didn't take word for word notes, so I can't speak back to what it was, but there were a few moments where it was hype and you clapped and everybody was happy. They also gave us a brief explanation of the area where we were playing in Terminal, where we needed to go, what we needed to do, and what generally to expect. We were shown a simplistic map that I could have probably drawn on MS Paint, but it did the job well. After that, the cinematics begin. Again, this is the kind of live action video stuff I believe will be the intro to Tarkov once we load into the game for the first time after updating to 1.0. It was essentially Lightkeeper doing a narrative about the story of Tarkov as an exclusive economic zone, how it ended up being sealed off, who are the various parties, you know, the Scavs and the Bear and the USEC and the traders and all that. It's nothing we haven't really seen already if you've paid any attention to the lore of Tarkov. As far as like information, it was nice to see it in video format, with the exception of the device. Now, Nice Guy is going to have his heart broken, but there is no nuke. It's some kind of EMP device or something, big blue explosion. And as it goes off over the Terra group building on Ground Zero, the cinematic closes out. And then we were told to play. We were all given level 42 accounts with decent kit. You had some options, though I don't think it mattered. What we had, it was basically an Osprey rig with Class 6 plates in it. It was a meta MCX with 300, it was like 7 mags of 300 AP and an extra 2 stacks of ammo, meds, some grenades, all that kind of stuff. Now, the PCs were assorted themselves into groups of 3, and that's what we played with as a 3-man squad. I was playing with Soft Serve and a guy I think that worked at the MSI booth. I'm pretty sure that's what he was. He had a bunch of MSI gear on, and he ended up saying he had to go back to his booth. We loaded in just like a regular game of Tarkov, except we were able to select Terminal this time. We had matching, loading loot, all that stuff. It took about 2 minutes to get into raid, but when the raid started off, it wasn't us in a raid, it was a cutscene. And this cutscene pretty much paralleled or mimicked the final episode of the raid series, like I'd said before. Now, these cutscenes are in-game animations. They aren't live action. And I think that's better, to be honest with you, because it is more immersive, because it does feel like you're there in the game. If you're wondering what that's like, it's very similar to when you interact with Lightkeeper, except more broad, more interactive. Lightkeeper is like a really rough edge version of what we got to see here. In this cutscene, we walk into Terminal from Shoreline. We're searched, basically have our gear taken from us, and you even get to see the orange gamma case, whatever you want, the alpha case, whatever you want to call it, that we saw in the raid series. As the cutscene continues, I also saw the Terra group individuals we saw in the raid series as well. There is some dialogue in the scene, and you're led into a locked room where you are to wait for some other important figure to speak with you, but that never happens. The cutscene ends once you walk into the room and you load in as your PMC in a medium-sized room with kind of chairs, boxes, desks, just miscellaneous stuff. We have no weapons, but we do have our helmet and our armor, but that's it. There's food and water, as well as some AI2s and pain pills and some CMSs, 5 of everything, so enough for a 5-man squad, I'm assuming. And you're only in there about 10 seconds and you start to hear sirens and a few mortars going off outside. Then another cutscene begins. This cutscene is just giving the in-game version of the full battle in the raid series there at the end. The walls getting blown out open, scavs are rushing in, fighting the RUAF forces. I can't do it justice just by describing it. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it most definitely added to the experience of the whole raid as it is. You felt like you were diving into the middle of that cutscene. But once the cutscene is over, the door outside can be opened, and as soon as you step out, it's an all-out war zone. The RUAF AI, which I guess I skipped over that part, there is RUF AI now. We've heard about them for a while. Think of them as kind of like Gluhar guards. That's what they struck me as. I didn't have to fight them myself. They're on your side of sorts. But they're all geared up in Russian gear. They look similar, kind of those kind of weapons, all of that. And as you walk out, those RUF AI are engaged with Scavs AI. Now there's mortars landing all around you, tracer fire, Russian yelling, Scav weapons shooting. It really was overwhelming the first time or two we did it. Now to kind of set the scene, when you step out of the door, you're in a series of grid buildings. Buildings that are just kind of scattered around each other, but in a grid format. But your path to the left as you walk out the door is blocked by what looked like a Molotov cocktail fire. I don't know if it was a Molotov or if it was some kind of incendiary mortar, but either way, you couldn't go that way. And to the right was fenced off, so you couldn't go that way. So the only way to go essentially is forward-ish down a road between all the buildings, and it's filled with vehicles and some tipped over shelves and dead scav bodies and stuff like that. But at your feet, also as you walk out, is a handful of dead RUF soldiers already. Now, they're intermixed with guys that are fighting. Their guns and mags are scattered around on the ground. Their bodies aren't your typical bodies. They're like the dead bodies you loot in Tarkov that are like containers. But they have their AKs on the ground next to them, mags scattered around them, some grenades, things like that. I was able to find an AK with a grenade launcher on it, as well as some grenades, so I was eager to pick those up. Soft serve, she grabbed another AK off a guy to the left, and some mags, and our poor third guy, I don't think he'd ever played Tarkov before because he had no idea what was going on. I'm looking through bodies, trying to find us some meds and stuff to get us through whatever's in front of us, and Soft Serve pushed down the road to engage the scavs, and I was looting bodies, and I get done with that, and I look up just in time to see her running down the road, shooting at scavs, and our third running behind her without a gun, just with his hands out, PMCs without guns running, like a lost puppy dog. I broke out laughing out loud and almost got blown up by a mortar because I wasn't paying attention. So I healed up a little bit, ran up, caught up with Soft Serve, and we started working on our way through the first objective. At this point, I kind of lost track of our third guy. I don't know if he died there or if he died later. He wasn't really in the mix with us. So Soft Serve and I, we pushed down to what was supposed to be our first objective, which is to get to the armory to retrieve our gear. The guns and stuff they took from us, I guess. And this is where the chaos ended our first raid. It was very difficult to distinguish who was RUAF forces, who was scavs, and who was Black Division. And we'll get into that a little bit. Someone in the squad must have shot one of the RUAF forces because pretty much in a blink of an eye, we were all dead to the RUAF forces. And that was the first run. We were killed just before we got to the armory, but we weren't done. Obviously, we didn't just give up with that, and we were able to go again. But our third player with us said he had to get back to his booth, so the one run was his only one. But Soft Serve and I readied up and hopped right back in. We played for nearly 2 more hours. They had extra space in the second segment, so we were able to keep going into the next hour, which was kind of funny because Soft Serve and I were trying to talk and communicate in the middle of a fight and a raid, right in the middle of the next group's presentation. And once I realized that we were doing that, I quieted down because I felt really bad. And all in all, I think we got about 8 or 10 runs in. We were never able to get to the door, which is like the third objective, where you kind of escape the area, as we always got killed by Black Division. But the experience was still great. We tried a couple of different things. We tried slow walking at one round and basically ended up getting flanked by the Black Division, and they freight trained us from behind because we didn't realize they'd killed all the RAF forces already. And what ended up being the best strategy, honestly, was pretty much rushing as fast as we safely could to the armory, grabbing the key that unlocks the armory, unlocking the armory, and then getting our gear, and then using that to fight the Black Division fire teams. Now, one of the cool things here was, and I'm not sure exactly what the mechanic, I can't say exactly what it was, but looting this, there was a locker inside here that you looted, and it felt like you were getting access to your stash. It wasn't that specifically. It was the gear, it was your guns and all the gear that they had taken off of you at the start of the raid, but I don't know if it's totally scripted or if it's actually looking at your gear and putting it away. I can't tell you if that was the mechanic, if it's your stash, if it's just they have that pre-scripted stuff put into the armory. I didn't get a chance. I probably should have asked. It wasn't one of those things that I was really worried about at the time until I thought about it later. But either way, it was a locker. It was huge. It was the size of your stash, and it was full of all the gear we loaded into the raid with, that we started the raid with, but didn't load in with. Now, back to the Black Division guys, the fire team. They were basically Tarkov AI that is dialed to 11, but also had some new tricks up their sleeves. They were very similar to fighting rogues, or maybe the goons, but they had way more depth to them and way more direction. You know, the rogues, especially, they do their thing, right? They're on the rooftop, or they're moving around water treatment plant, and they basically come straight at you. There's no tactic to it, just like raiders. The Black Division guys, they moved with cover, they flanked, and they provided cover fire for one another. And if you gave one of them more than a half a second to shoot you, you were usually dead in most cases to a headshot. Now, in one of my better runs, I was able to take 8 of them by myself, and I think Soft Serve got 3 of them. But ammo very quickly became a problem, even with 300 AP. You were only running 30-round mags, and they were mostly wearing class 6s, and just the way their mechanics worked, and the fact that it was dark and it was chaotic, it made headshots difficult to pull off. So you're usually doing, like half mag dumps into their thorax, neck, head area just to get them down. They, as a whole, had almost entirely new gear as well. I was able to loot, I think, 7 or 8 different Black Division bodies throughout the day. All new backpacks, new rigs, new armors, gas masks, helmets, NVGs, all sorts of stuff. I did see some new attachments, but only I didn't get to get a detail screen, only on their inventory. I couldn't get a close look at it because I was too busy trying to stay alive, but I'm pretty sure I saw some new suppressors and handguards on an HK, some new optics, things like that at the very least. And the Black Division guys themselves seem to be arranged in 4-man fire teams with different roles in their gear. Not that they necessarily acted different, but what they had on them kind of distinguished them differently. It reminded me a lot of Battlefield squads, where you had, engineers and assault and support, and how their skins look a little bit different. That's kind of how their gear was portrayed. Just with what their backpacks were, what their armored rigs were, and what their weapons were. They also had some new voice lines. And my first initial reaction to them, to be honest, was I was kind of let down at first, because it just seemed too robotic and lifeless, emotionless, if you will. But then it dawned on me that I think that was probably the whole point. The Black Division guys are hinted at as merciless professional killers. And that definitely was the vibe from their voice lines. When you killed one, they called, teammate down, but not in a concerned way, more of a, hey, fill that slot. Carl got slaughtered. Nobody really cares, but we don't want to get shot from there. It was kind of the vibe that it gave off. And they seemed to move like fire teams as well. It was crazy to watch them, at least kind of watch them fight the RUAF. You had to do it from cover and be careful. So it was kind of limited what I was able to see, but both AI would take cover from each other, engage, fall back to heal, try to flank, but the Black Division's always won. The Black Division guys were always on top. You could use the RUAF forces to buy a little time, or to isolate a direction, or maybe use them as distraction to be able to swing one of the Black Division guys. But you were always going to end up fighting the Black Division guys. There was never a place where RUF was going to win. In fact, one of the BSG guys said that they had run just scenarios with no players in there and just let the AI do their thing. And 100% of the time, Black Division kills everything on the map. Everything's just dead. So that's that. And that kind of played out for us, as the armory was getting through the armory to the other side and fighting some Black Division was really as far as we were able to make it. Had we not been killed, the remainder of your mission, or whatever the raid was going to be, was you basically had to find a key card on one of the Black Division engineers. It was in his pocket. And then head for what was another gate. And at that gate was Gluhar and some guards, and they weren't dialed to 11, they were dialed to 20 apparently. And that got most everybody else who got that far. There were a few folks that did make it to the gate and through it with the key card, but you were killed as soon as you got on the other side by Black Division snipers, essentially out of bounds snipers. And that was by design in this scenario. They have to end it somewhere. They want to make it as limited as they can. So there was no surviving regardless. And I hope that's not like an omen for Tarkov, though that is in the Raid series. If you watch the movie, you'll see that is, hopefully escaping Tarkov isn't in a body bag. And that isn't just, I don't think that's what they're doing. They wouldn't have given the ending away like that. But yeah, that was the scenario. Now, this will just be what is seen at PAX West. BSG said that each of the 4 conventions will get more content or different content to preview. So Paris will play something different than we did, and so will Tokyo, and so will Busan right before launch. Though I think, I'm speaking from memory here, I think they said they're probably going to end up at Busan, maybe opening up the whole game since it's going to launch while they're at Busan. Don't take that as gospel. Wait to see what BSG says about that. But that's kind of what they hinted at is, there might be something different at Busan, but the game's going to launch right in the middle of the convention. So they might just be having the open game there. We'll just have to wait and see. The point of all this is that BSG wants to make sure to have new content at each location. So we'll get more tidbits and info every couple of weeks. For me, this was an awesome experience. I don't know how to put it. It put a bow on years of expectations and waiting. Now, here's a clip of me in the moment. Dimitri asked us to give our thoughts on it, and I think it captures it better than me scripting it out here. It's more in the moment, and it's a little bit more raw, which there's ups and downs to that, but here, let's just listen to that.
So the Tarkov we're all used to, that we've seen, and everybody's grown accustomed to, sandbox Tarkov, if you will, is completely different than what we got to play today. The experience it's not just narrative, it's immersive in a sense of you're in the story. And it was something I hoped we were going to get for Tarkov, and it's special to finally be able to actually play it. The big takeaways from it are is you can really feel the love in the game and the effort put into to give you the experience that just this little taste we got in here. I want to say more about it, but I don't want to give away spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for people. The experience is going to be something else. It's going to be worth the wait.
Now, I guess this is a third section, even though I only said I was going to do 2. I'm going to go through my X Twitter feed and show you some of the questions and answers I gave from the community, because I imagine that a lot of you will have the same ones, and I'll do my best to answer it here like that. But if I don't get to it, do not hesitate to go down into the comments down below and ask a question. I will do my best to answer everything that I can. I'll let you know if I can't. And I pretty much read every comment anyways, so I'll get to it. But let's take a quick look at Twitter here. Okay, so here's my post. I don't know why this one was the one where everybody asked questions, but it was, so it's fine. So let's get through some of the comments in here and things that people put. Start off with here. He says he can't wait to farm. Again, this is more like a scenario mission than going to Lighthouse and farm raiders. So I don't know if that's ever going to be a thing. I don't know if you're going to be able to farm Black Division. My guess is probably not. You're probably only going to be able to fight them in the specific scenario, and then maybe some stuff later on. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but that's how I look at it. People asking about RUAF. Yes, there's RUAF. Good question here. Visually, would you say the game seemed the same as current, or did you notice any difference in model fidelity, lighting, animations, etc.? Seemed the same to me. Like I said, nothing jumped out at me, but I'm also not the best at noticing this stuff. I tend to get very sucked in to these kind of games, and I do notice graphics and stuff like that, but it didn't seem different to me. That doesn't mean it wasn't. It just, there wasn't anything drastically different that stood out to where I felt like, oh my god, this is a completely new game. It felt like Tarkov. He said, how different does it feel from playing the build we are at right now, the hardcore wipe? And it was smoother. Whether that's because I don't think we were playing on local machines. I do think it was networked. Not 100% sure of that. So I don't know if it was LAN. I don't know if it was over a closed server. I don't know. But it was smoother, more responsive. But like I said here, it's tough to compare stuff like this. The PCs were Alienwares, but I have no idea what was in them or what they were. So I can't really compare them to my rig for better or worse, things like that. And I have a pretty beefy rig. I'm running a 4090, 1409K, all the kind of good stuff. So that comparison is not something I can make and give you good information on. They asked if the guns were fully operational, not like half durability from other gun we take from PCs. I didn't get a chance to look at that. I didn't double click and check durability. I was more concerned with, okay, can I use this gun? Oh, what is the cool attachment? Oh my God, look at that awesome rig. Oh shit, I'm getting shot. You know, that was kind of the whole way it went down. If I got time to look at stuff, I did, but I never did double click to see if the guns had, you know, screwed up durability or if there was something you wanted to pick up. I did never experience a jam or a malfunction, which was nice, but yeah. Is the map big? Did you play at nighttime or daytime? How big is it compared to some actual map? So we played, it was nighttime, obviously. I think I said that already. The map, there was a map in that first room we loaded into. Like, you think of the Tarkov maps, like the shoreline map or the, you know, the customs map. They're the in-game maps, not the really nice ones that like Reaver makes or the wiki has, just the in-game ones. There was one of those at Terminal. And based on the Microsoft Paint map we had, we got to see maybe 10% of Terminal. I don't know how much of Terminal is actually open to the map, but based on the one we had on the wall, we saw about 10% of it, and that was it. And that 10% is bigger than Factory, so it's hard to say how big the map is. Pretty big. It's not like Shoreline big, but I think it's going to be bigger than, you know, say the inside of Interchange or something like that. Is kind of what it felt like to me. Oh, let's see. Were you able to find out if they were harder to fight as USEC or easier as a bear? No, but I don't think they are. The way this storyline is scripted is it doesn't matter if you're USEC or bear, because in the raid series, the two PMCs that get in there are both USEC. There's one USEC and one bear PMC trying to escape together, right? They kind of become friends, sort of friends of situation. So I don't think it's going to play into it. I couldn't tell you if there was or not, because I'm pretty sure we were all USEC. All of the characters they gave us, but if there's something different in Bear and USEC, it wasn't evident in what we played. He question mark Molotov, and I said yes. And what it is you open up the door, you see the Molotov land to your left, or you don't see it land, but you see the fireball start and spread out like a Molotov would, you know, like a fuel fire. But I don't know if it was a Molotov or if it was a mortar, because there's mortars going off when this happens as well. So one or the other, either way, that effect is there. Is this proof that BSG actually has a whole different Escape from Tarkov stored away and what we play is just a failed version? I've not heard this conspiracy or whatever, this theory before. It's interesting. No, I don't think that's what happened. You guys, anybody watching the channel has probably seen my short where I talked about BSG branching off a year ago to work on 1.0 and all of this hidden content. And then we played the live branch, which was updated, but it didn't have all this new stuff they were working on and didn't have all of the effort to it. So that's what I think we're seeing here. It says, are these the guys that show up in the last of the raid series? Yes, that's who is in the raid series is Black Division. That is who you were fighting there. That's who we were fighting. Shit talkers, where do they spawn? So I think it's just somebody didn't realize what was going on. I think they thought maybe it was in the game. Just telling them that it's a 1.0 preview on the map terminal. Shit talking. Would like the uniform more black like the cultists. So the uniforms were BDU kind of stuff. They did have varied clothing, but their gear was mostly black. The backpacks, the rigs, and things like that. There was not all 100% black, but it was mostly black. It was super sick looking. It's some of the best looking gear we've had in the game. I will say that. Can I confirm battle belt slots? No. So there was no like extra rig or anything like that, but the Black Division guys did have huge pockets. I like Kabans, actually probably bigger. I think they might have even been bigger than Kabans. You know, more people talking about RUF AI, more intense than the Bloodhounds, way more intense. I know the Bloodhounds were tough, but I put the Bloodhounds in my mind somewhere between Rogues and somewhere in Raiders, right? They were in between there. The maps they were on kind of impacted how hard they were to fight, but the Black Division are the hardest AI we've had to fight. The Goons are somewhat comparable, but the Black Division don't have some of the kind of silly mechanics that the Goons have, so it's just a little bit different. How did you get to the terminal? Is it a transit through Shoreline? We had no idea. Like I said, we loaded into the raid, we selected terminal, and when you load in, you're at a cutscene walking in to terminal, assumably from Shoreline. That question I don't understand. Let's see here. People talking about SPT like always. There's the Black Division patch for those that hadn't seen it. I think that's pretty much it. I think that's the questions, the good questions I had out of here. There's lots of other questions. It's mostly repeats. So that's that list. Again, if you have other questions, throw them down in the comments. I will do my best to answer. But that's it. That's all I have for you guys on the 1.0 preview I got to play. If you guys like the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe button, as it tells YouTube not only that you want to see more of my content, but it lets them know that others might like it too. So it helps me out a lot. I'll keep my eyes peeled for any new info we can share with you guys, and we'll go from there. As always, thank you guys for watching. I wish you the best of luck in your raids, and we'll see you in Tarkov.